Welcome back to Byte-Sized Tech, where we blend those casual conversations with insightful discussions on the latest in technology and gadgets.
You got it. We're serving up those juicy insights without the jargon overload.
Exactly. And today we're diving deep into AI, open source, and, well, can Elon Musk really shake up the government? I'm not so sure.
Lots to unpack.
Yeah. So let's start with the AI craze. Everyone's talking about it. But is all this investment sustainable? I mean, one article we're looking at dives into NVIDIA stock, which has been, well, a bit of a roller coaster.
Oh, absolutely. NVIDIA, they're dominating the AI chip market, right?
Sure.
The stock price. It's all over the place. And I think that reflects a much bigger question. Are companies going to keep pouring money into AI infrastructure at this crazy rate?
Right. It kind of reminds me, of the dot-com bubble. Everyone's scrambling for a piece of the internet, and then boom, things crashed hard.
Yeah, that comparison, it's tempting. But remember, companies like Amazon, Google, they came out of that mess stronger than ever. So while an AI correction, yeah, it's possible, the technology itself, I think it's here to stay.
So for listeners out there, what's the takeaway from all this stock market craziness?
I think the key is look beyond the hype, okay? AI's staying power. It's all tied to how effectively and affordably it gets integrated into everyday stuff. That's where the real value is.
So it's less about those whiz-bang algorithms and more about, practical uses. How can AI actually make our lives easier, solve real problems?
Exactly. And that leads us to another fascinating development. The rise of open source AI. Particularly, there's this Chinese model called DeepSeek. It's making waves.
DeepSeek, right. It's been downloaded like crazy. Why is this open source model such a big deal?
Well, think about it. Traditionally, AI development, it's been dominated by those big tech giants. Google, OpenAI, the whole game. DeepSeek is different. It's making these powerful AI models accessible to, well, everyone.
So it's like democratizing AI, giving smaller companies, developers, the tools to innovate without needing, massive resources.
Precisely. And that could lead to an explosion of creativity, new applications we haven't even thought of. But of course, there are concerns, geopolitical ones, especially since it came from China.
Yeah, that adds a whole other layer to this open source revolution. It's exciting, but a little unnerving at the same time,
Absolutely. And it's interesting, even companies like OpenAI, they've been all about closed systems, right? But even they're starting to see the benefits of open source competition.
So they're realizing it's not about who wins the AI race, but how open collaboration can actually lead to breakthroughs for everyone.
Exactly. And for you listening, this means the future of AI, it's becoming more unpredictable, more decentralized. It's not a given that big tech will call all the shots anymore.
Okay, so we've got investment uncertainty, open source disruption. Now let's add Elon Musk to the mix. He's taking aim at what he calls government inefficiency.
Right, and that's the big question, isn't it? Can Musk, with his private sector, move fast and break things attitude? Can that really work in government? I mean, government is a totally different beast.
Right. He's all about efficiency, launching that whole DOGE initiative to, highlight government waste.
Yeah.
But let's be honest, his own companies, they haven't always been models of efficiency, have they?
No, not at all. I mean, look at Tesla. It took them years, over a decade, to become profitable. So applying that same risk-taking, iterative approach to government, it could be a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, it's like governing.
Yeah.
It involves a lot more than just cutting costs, right? You're providing essential services to millions of people, balancing all these different interests.
Exactly. And for our listeners, I think it's important to remember, while efficiency sounds great, governing, it's about more than just the bottom line. It's about people's lives.
Okay, so we've got these three threads: AI investment, open source, and Musk shaking things up in government. They seem kind of separate, but are they actually connected?
Oh, absolutely. They're all intertwined, shaping the future of tech in these interconnected ways. What we're seeing is a power shift, decentralization, a push for accessibility. These trends, they're all influencing each other in ways we're only beginning to understand, really.
It's like this giant puzzle where all the pieces are moving at once.
Exactly. And that's what makes this so exciting. We're witnessing a fundamental shift in how technology is developed, how it's used, and ultimately, who benefits from it. So we've talked about these big tech trends, the big picture stuff. But let's get down to brass tacks. How could this actually, play out in the real world?
Beyond the headlines, the stock tickers. What does it mean for us regular folks?
Exactly. Take AI investment, right. Even if there's a correction, a slowdown, it doesn't mean progress starts. It just means the focus might shift a bit.
Toward, more practical applications, maybe. Less about building the biggest, baddest AI and more about solving, like, real problems.
Exactly. Instead of chasing those fancy algorithms, we might see more emphasis on AI that works for specific industries, tailored solutions.
So, like, AI that helps doctors diagnose diseases earlier,
Hmm.
or AI that helps farmers optimize crop yields, make food production more efficient, stuff like that.
That's the idea. And this is where the whole open source thing gets really interesting. Imagine hospitals being able to access, even customize powerful AI models without needing a gazillion dollars.
That would be a game changer, especially for, healthcare systems that are already struggling with costs. It could really democratize access to cutting-edge tech,
Hmm.
leading to hopefully better outcomes for patients.
And it's not just healthcare. Think about education, manufacturing,
Yeah.
even government services. Open source AI has the potential to level the playing field,
Yeah.
allowing smaller players to compete, to innovate in ways they just couldn't before.
That's exciting. But what about,
Mm.
the potential downsides? There's been a lot of talk about the risks of AI,
Yeah.
job displacement, algorithmic bias, all that stuff.
Yeah, those are valid concerns, absolutely. And we need to be super vigilant about them. But I actually think open source could be part of the solution.
Really? How so?
Well, think about it. Open source, it makes AI development more transparent, right?
Yeah.
More accessible. So more people can see how these systems work, which means it's easier to identify and mitigate potential biases.
It's like the more eyes you have on the code, the less chance of, I don't know, unintended consequences slipping through the cracks.
Exactly. And it also creates opportunities to build more ethical AI from the ground up. Open source can help shift the focus from, pure profit-driven development to development that prioritizes, human well-being.
Okay, so we've got this potential upside with open source AI, but we can't forget about the geopolitical elephant in the room, right?
Oh, absolutely not. The fact that DeepSeek came out of China, it's raised eyebrows, and rightfully so. We need to be mindful of how these technologies can be used, especially when it comes to national security, global competition, all of that.
It's a tricky balance, isn't it? Encouraging innovation and collaboration, but also being realistic about the potential risks.
It is. There's no easy answers here. But I think open dialogue is key. Within countries and between them, we need clear guidelines, ethical frameworks for AI development, but we also need to foster international cooperation, work together on this.
That sounds incredibly challenging, getting everyone to agree on something as complex as AI, it seems. Yeah, like a tall order.
It won't be easy, that's for sure. But it's crucial. The alternative is a fragmented, competitive AI landscape, and that could lead to, well, unintended consequences for everyone.
So cooperation, not competition, is the key to navigating this new world of open source AI.
I believe so. We need to recognize that the challenges posed by AI, they're global challenges, and they require global solutions.
Okay, let's shift gears for a minute, talk about Elon Musk and his crusade for government efficiency. Do you think he has a point? Is government really that inefficient?
Well, government bureaucracy, yeah, it can be complex, slow-moving, but it's important to remember government operates on a different scale than a private company, right?
You mean they're dealing with millions of people, billions of dollars, providing services that everyone relies on. It's a whole different ballgame.
Exactly. So while efficiency is important, it's not the only factor. You can't just run a government like a business. The stakes are much, much higher.
So you're saying Musk's, private sector mindset might not translate so well to the public sector.
That's my concern. His focus on cutting costs, streamlining everything, it could have unintended consequences, especially if it comes at the expense of, essential services or public safety.
It's like you can't just take a Silicon Valley playbook and apply it to something as complex as government. There are different priorities, different responsibilities.
Precisely. And I think that's something we need to keep in mind when we evaluate Musk's proposals, like his DOGE initiative. We need to ask those tough questions about the trade-offs, the potential unintended consequences.
So what's your take on the DOGE initiative? Is it just a publicity stunt, or could it actually lead to, real change?
I think shining a light on government waste is never a bad thing. And if Musk's initiative can help identify areas where taxpayer money is being, misspent, that's a positive step. But we need to be careful about oversimplifying things. Government spending, it's not always about waste. Sometimes it's about investing in programs, services that benefit everyone.
Like education, infrastructure, things that, boost the economy, improve people's lives in the long run.
Exactly. So while fiscal responsibility is essential, we can't just slash and burn without considering the bigger picture.
It's about finding that balance, right?
Right.
Efficiency without sacrificing the things that make a society function.
Precisely. And that requires, nuanced leadership, a deep understanding of how government works, something that can't be gleaned from a Silicon Valley boardroom, I'm afraid.
So we've covered a lot of ground here. AI investment, the rise of open source, the complexities of, applying a business mindset to government. What's the one big takeaway you want our listeners to walk away with?
I think the most important thing is to stay informed, stay engaged. The tech landscape is changing so fast, and it's going to impact all of our lives. We can't just be passive observers. We have to, actively shape the future we want to see.
And that brings us to the most exciting part of our show, listener mail.
That's right. We love hearing from you, so keep those questions and comments coming.
It's always fascinating to get our listeners' perspectives, especially on these, constantly evolving topics.
Absolutely. So our first message is from Sarah in Seattle. She writes, I'm really excited about the potential of open source AI, but I'm also worried about security. If anyone can access and modify these models, couldn't that be dangerous?
That's a great question, Sarah, and it's one that a lot of people are asking. It's true. Open source AI does come with some inherent security risks. I mean, if someone with bad intentions gets access to the code, they could introduce vulnerabilities, maybe even create, harmful AI systems.
Right. But the thing is, open source isn't inherently less secure than closed systems. The security of any AI system, it really depends on how it's designed, how it's implemented, how it's maintained. And there are definitely ways to mitigate the risks associated with open source.
Like what kind of safeguards are we talking about?
Well, open source communities, they often have very robust security protocols. Because the code is open for anyone to see, vulnerabilities can be identified and patched really quickly. It's like having thousands of security experts constantly reviewing the code looking for problems.
That makes sense. More eyes on the problem, better chance of catching those errors before they become, major issues.
Yeah. Exactly. And in addition to those community-driven security measures, there are also technical solutions, things like differential privacy, which helps protect sensitive data, or secure enclaves, which can isolate AI models from potential attacks.
So it sounds like there are ways to make open source AI more secure, but it's not something we can just assume will happen automatically. It requires constant vigilance, proactive measures.
Absolutely. It's an ongoing process. As AI technology evolves, we need to constantly reevaluate and adapt our approach to security.
Our next message comes from John in New York. He writes, you guys have been talking a lot about the potential of AI, but I'm still not convinced it's going to have a major impact on my life. Is it all just hype?
That's a fair question, John. And I think it's important to acknowledge that the hype around AI can sometimes, get ahead of reality. But the truth is, AI is already having a pretty significant impact on our lives, even if we don't always realize it.
Like how? For those of us who aren't, coding AI algorithms or working in tech labs, how is AI showing up in our everyday lives?
Well, think about the recommendations you get on Netflix or Amazon. Those are powered by AI algorithms that are constantly learning, adapting to your preferences. And then there's those voice assistants we use on our smartphones, our smart speakers. Those are all examples of AI that are already integrated into our daily routines.
Oh, right. I hadn't even thought of that. It's like we're using AI every day without even realizing it. It's become so normal that we just take it for granted.
Exactly. And as AI technology keeps advancing, its impact is only going to grow. We'll probably see AI playing a bigger role in healthcare, transportation, education, countless other industries.
So maybe John just needs to wait a little longer before he starts seeing those self-driving cars and robot doctors everyone keeps talking about.
Yeah, that might be a while. But even without those futuristic applications, AI is already changing the world around us. Maybe in subtle ways, but in profound ways nonetheless.
Okay, we have time for one more message. This one comes from Maria in Miami. She writes, I'm concerned about AI being used for malicious purposes. What's being done to prevent AI from falling into the wrong hands?
That's a critical question, Maria, and one that deserves a lot of attention. The potential for AI to be used for harmful purposes is very real, and we need to be proactive in addressing it.
So what are some of the things being done? Are there safeguards in place to prevent AI from becoming a tool for, bad actors?
Well, on a technical level, researchers are developing techniques to make AI systems more robust, more secure, less vulnerable to attacks or manipulation. And on a policy level, governments and international organizations are working to establish ethical guidelines, regulations for AI development and use.
So it's a two-pronged approach. addressing those technical vulnerabilities, but also creating ethical frameworks, regulations to guide its development and use.
Exactly. And it's an ongoing process, as you can imagine. As AI technology evolves, we need to constantly reevaluate and adapt our approach to security and ethics.
Well said. That's all the time we have for listener mail today, but keep those questions coming, folks. We love hearing from you.
It's always a pleasure to engage with our listeners, hear their thoughts. It reminds us that these aren't just abstract tech topics, they have real-world implications for everyone.
And that's what we try to do here at Bite-Sized Tech, right? Break down those complex tech issues,
Yeah.
make it informative, engaging, and hopefully relevant to your everyday life.
Well said. So to our listeners, we encourage you, stay curious, stay informed, stay engaged in this whole conversation about the future of tech. Your voice matters.
You know, it's wild to think about how AI is already kind of woven into our lives, like those Netflix recommendations. They're pretty spot on sometimes. And then there's the voice assistants, right? I probably talk to Alexa more than I talk to my own mother.
Yeah, it's true. AI is becoming, well, it's everywhere. And its influence, I mean, it's only going to grow as the technology gets more advanced.
Speaking of influence, we can't really wrap up this deep dive without talking about, the ethical side of things. It's one thing to talk about efficiency and innovation, but what about the potential downsides?
It's a crucial point. We need to make sure that as AI systems become more powerful, more common, that they're developed and used responsibly.
So, what are some of the big ethical challenges we should be thinking about?
Well, one major concern is bias. We talked about how AI algorithms are trained on these huge data sets, right? And if those data sets reflect existing biases, the ones we see in society, well, the AI systems can actually perpetuate, even amplify those biases.
So, if an AI system used for hiring decisions is trained on data that reflects, let's say, historical gender discrimination, it could end up recommending candidates based on those same biased criteria.
Exactly. And that could have huge consequences, perpetuating inequalities, undermining fairness. It's a big deal.
So how do we fix that? Is it just a matter of creating more diverse, more representative data sets?
That's part of it, yeah. But it's also about developing algorithms that are designed to be fair, unbiased from the ground up. Researchers are working on things like fairness-aware machine learning, which tries to make AI systems that are sensitive to potential biases so they can make decisions based on, objective criteria.
Sounds complicated. But it's got to be done right if we want AI to benefit everyone.
Absolutely. And then there's another big question, accountability. When an AI system makes a mistake or, even causes harm, who's responsible? Is it the developers, the users, or the AI itself?
That's a tough one, especially as AI systems become more autonomous, able to make decisions without us humans interfering.
It is. There's no easy answers, but it's a conversation we need to have as a society. We need to figure out who's responsible and how we hold AI systems and their creators accountable.
It's like we're in uncharted territory here. We need a whole new set of rules, ethical guidelines to navigate this AI world.
Precisely. And it's not just about preventing harm. It's about making sure AI is used in a way that aligns with our values, promotes well-being.
So making sure it's used to help people, not replace them.
Exactly. We need to think about how AI can empower people, create opportunities, improve lives, not just automate tasks and make things more efficient.
It's about finding that balance. Technological progress, but with a human touch.
Absolutely. And that requires, well, a lot of perspectives. Ethicists, policymakers, technologists, and the public. We all need to be involved to make sure AI benefits everyone.
Well said. I think that's a great place to wrap things up. As we've seen, AI is a powerful tool. It could change the world for better or for worse. And it's up to us to make sure it's used responsibly, ethically, and for the benefit of all.
I couldn't agree more. It's an exciting time seeing all this unfold, but it's also a time for us to be thoughtful, to take action, and make sure AI is a force for good.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into AI, open source, and Elon Musk's government ambitions. It's been a wild ride.
It certainly has. And as always, we encourage you, stay curious, stay informed, stay engaged with the future of technology.
Thanks for tuning in to Bite-Sized Tech. If you enjoyed the episode, like, comment, share, and subscribe for more fun tech discussions.